A woman chooses the man who moves on because his strength speaks louder than his attachment. His calm detachment shows self-respect, direction, and emotional maturity. She feels chosen, not chased. She trusts a man who stands steady, grows forward, and loves from fullness, not fear. His independence is what makes him irresistible. A woman is drawn to the man who moves forward, not because she wants distance, but because she wants depth. She isn't choosing space over connection. She's choosing a kind of connection that can only exist when a man is rooted in himself first. There is something undeniably powerful about a man who keeps moving, not away from her, but toward his purpose, his growth, and his self-respect. His forward momentum doesn't signal disinterest. It signals discipline. It shows her that he isn't living a life centered around waiting, clinging, or hoping someone else will validate him. And that depth, his depth, is what pulls her in. Women aren't drawn to stagnation. They don't feel safe with a man who stops living because of them. It makes them feel responsible for his happiness, his direction, his emotional stability. And nothing kills attraction faster than becoming someone's emotional life support. But when she sees a man who continues to grow, who keeps his vision clear, even when his feelings are strong, she recognizes a rare form of emotional maturity. He doesn't move forward to escape her. He moves forward to remain himself. And that is what creates the depth she craves. Depth is not found in a man who waits by the phone, pauses his dreams, or loses himself in fear of losing her. Depth is found in the man who trusts the process, who trusts timing, and who trusts himself. A man who can walk with life instead of gripping it tightly. A man who understands that love does not require shrinking, pausing, or proving. It requires becoming. A woman feels drawn to this energy because it tells her she will not have to carry the relationship alone. She will not have to mother him emotionally. She will not have to reassure him at every step just to keep him steady. Instead, she senses that she can lean on him, grow with him, and evolve beside him. His forward movement gives her a sense of emotional safety. His independence gives her space to breathe. His clarity gives her confidence. This kind of man doesn't need to announce his value. He demonstrates it. He doesn't need to convince her he is worthy. His life shows it. He doesn't chase because he understands that anything forced is temporary. He doesn't cling because he knows anything built on fear will collapse. He moves forward because standing still is not an option for a man committed to becoming better. And that is what she chooses. She chooses the man whose identity does not dissolve in the presence of love. She chooses the man who can give affection without losing vision, who can connect without becoming dependent, who can love without losing himself. His ability to move forward tells her he will not break if things get difficult. It tells her he will not crumble under pressure. It tells her he has a life big enough to include her, but not small enough to revolve around her. She values a man who respects himself enough not to cling, beg, or chase, because a man who respects himself carries a very different energy, an energy that tells her he is whole, grounded, and emotionally stable. He isn't desperate for attention. He doesn't lose himself in the fear of losing her, and he doesn't hand over his dignity just to secure someone's presence. He understands that love is meaningful only when it's mutual, when it's chosen freely, not forced through pressure or anxiety. A woman instinctively pulls away from a man who clings because his neediness doesn't feel like love. It feels like emotional weight. She doesn't want to feel like she's responsible for his happiness or like her affection is the only thing keeping him together. That kind of attachment suffocates rather than supports. But when a man stands in his own strength, when he can care deeply without collapsing emotionally, she feels safe, not overwhelmed. A man who refuses to beg shows her that he values himself enough to walk away from anything that isn't reciprocated. He doesn't plead for her time, attention, or validation because he knows that begging never leads to real connection. It only creates imbalance. Instead, he expresses interest with clarity and confidence, and then he allows things to unfold naturally. This tells her he is a man with boundaries, not a man who will give up everything just to keep someone near him. His self-respect becomes the foundation of trust. And she admires the man who doesn't chase, because chasing is a sign of fear, not strength. The more a man chases, the more he loses his emotional center. He starts acting from insecurity, from panic, from the belief that she is the prize and he is the pursuer. But a man with self-respect knows that connection should feel like two people moving toward each other, not one person sprinting while the other stands still. He chooses alignment over pursuit, attraction over pressure, reciprocity over desperation. What she truly values is the emotional maturity behind these behaviors. A man who doesn't cling is a man who has his own life, his own dreams, and his own identity. A man who doesn't beg is a man who knows his worth. A man who doesn't chase is a man who understands that real love grows in the space where both people feel free, not trapped. His self-respect becomes the quiet confidence that draws her in. She feels safe with a man who can want her without needing to own her. She feels respected by a man who gives her space without withdrawing emotionally. She feels valued by a man who shows interest without trying to overpower her with it. His calm presence speaks louder than any dramatic gesture ever could. It shows her that he remains himself regardless of what happens, and that stability is what makes him intensely magnetic. His ability to move on reflects emotional strength, not emotional absence. It's easy to assume that someone who moves forward quickly must not have felt deeply, but that assumption comes from misunderstanding what true strength looks like. A man who can move on isn't cold, numb, or detached from his emotions. He simply refuses to let pain define him, control him, or dictate his direction in life. He feels everything. He just doesn't stay stuck in what hurts. He understands that emotional pain is a part of life, not a place to live. And that's what makes him different. Moving on doesn't mean he didn't care. It means he cared without losing himself. It means he allowed the experience to shape him but not break him. It means he processed the disappointment, the loss, and the confusion and still chose to keep moving. That is strength in its purest form. A man who possesses this kind of emotional strength doesn't wait for closure to free him. He doesn't wait for someone else to apologize or return. He creates his own peace. He learns the lessons the experience gave him and then lets go of the version of himself that loved blindly, gave too much, or accepted too little. He understands that letting go isn't forgetting. It's choosing himself over the illusion of what could have been. When he moves on, he does it with clarity. He doesn't pretend the connection meant nothing. He doesn't hide behind bitterness or ego. He simply recognizes that holding on to what's no longer aligned with him only drains his energy and blocks what's meant for him. So he walks forward, not because he lacks emotion, but because he values emotional health. Not because he's indifferent, but because he chooses not to suffer unnecessarily. The world often praises the man who waits endlessly, who sacrifices himself in the name of love, who refuses to let go no matter how much it hurts. But that isn't romantic. It's self-destructive. The man who moves on refuses to glorify suffering. He knows a relationship should expand him, not shrink him. It should bring peace, not chaos. It should inspire growth, not hold him hostage to hope. When it doesn't, he knows how to walk away. And this is exactly why his ability to move on commands respect. It shows a level of emotional intelligence many people never develop. It shows he trusts life enough to release what doesn't reciprocate. It shows he isn't controlled by fear of being alone or by the illusion that love must be dramatic to be real. His strength comes from knowing his worth, honoring his boundaries, and staying loyal to his future, not to his wounds. A man who can move on is not emotionally absent. He's emotionally disciplined. He feels deeply but refuses to drown. He loves fully but refuses to cling. He grieves honestly but refuses to stay broken. And that balance, feeling without falling apart, loving without losing himself, letting go without resentment, is what makes him powerful. It's what makes him whole. A man who doesn't collapse without her shows he can stand with her, not on her. Because when a man collapses in her absence, it reveals he wasn't standing on his own feet to begin with. He was leaning entirely on her. That kind of dependence doesn't feel like love. It feels like pressure. A woman doesn't want to become a man's emotional spine, the only source of his strength, stability, or direction. She wants a partner, not someone she has to hold upright. When a man can stand without her, it doesn't mean she's unimportant. It means he's built a life strong enough to support two people, not just himself. He has a sense of identity that doesn't evaporate when she's not around. He has emotional balance that doesn't crumble the moment something goes wrong. This makes her feel safe, not because he doesn't need her, but because he doesn't depend on her to survive. A woman is drawn to a man who can navigate life's storms with emotional steadiness. When he doesn't collapse, she sees that he has inner strength, discipline, and resilience. He can face challenges without falling apart, which means he can face challenges with her without burdening her. His ability to stand on his own gives her room to relax, breathe, and lean on him too. That balance creates a relationship built on trust rather than fear. A man who collapses emotionally communicates that he was using the relationship as a life raft. He wasn't loving, he was attaching. He wasn't connecting, he was clinging. This drains her, overwhelms her, and eventually pushes her away. But a man who stands tall without her shows her that his life remains intact. His world doesn't end because something didn't work out. His goals don't disappear because he's hurt. His identity doesn't shatter because she walked away. And this is what impresses her. Not coldness, not detachment, but composure, emotional steadiness, the ability to feel deeply without becoming unstable. He lets the pain soften him, not break him. He processes his emotions without projecting them. He holds himself together not to appear strong, but because he is strong. And this level of emotional responsibility is incredibly attractive. A man who can stand alone proves that he is capable of standing beside her. Relationships require two solid individuals, not one person carrying the other. If he collapses, she becomes the support system. But if he stands, they become a team. She wants to walk with someone who can match her energy, not someone who drains it. Someone who can handle life, not hide behind her. Someone who can love her, not depend on her to function. His ability to remain stable without her reassures her that he will not suffocate her with fear or insecurity. He will not need constant reassurance. He will not panic every time there is distance. Instead, he will hold his ground, stay connected to his purpose, and give the relationship a steady foundation. A man who doesn't collapse without her is a man who brings strength to the table. Not weakness disguised as devotion, not dependence disguised as love. He's a partner, not a weight. And that is why she trusts him. That is why she feels safe with him. That is why she can stand with him, because he can stand on his own. She trusts a man who chooses growth over obsession and evolution over attachment. Because obsession may feel intense, but it is never stable. It's a rush of emotion without direction, a fire that burns hot but burns out fast. A woman doesn't want to be someone's obsession. She wants to be someone's inspiration. Obsession consumes, but growth expands. Attachment clings, but evolution strengthens. And she is drawn to the man who understands this difference. A man who chooses growth shows her that his life has purpose beyond just holding on to her. He isn't fixated on controlling the relationship or keeping her close out of fear. Instead, he focuses on becoming better, wiser, stronger, because he knows that a relationship can only rise to the emotional maturity of the people in it. His commitment to self-improvement tells her that he will never stop evolving, never stop learning, never stop building, and that stability gives her a sense of long-term safety. Obsession, on the other hand, is rooted in insecurity. It makes a man cling to the idea of her instead of connecting with the reality of her. It makes him afraid, reactive, and emotionally unpredictable. But a man who chooses growth knows that love isn't supposed to imprison either of them. Love is supposed to elevate both. So instead of obsessing over keeping her, he obsesses over becoming the best version of himself, because he knows the right woman will always be drawn to a man who evolves. When she sees a man choosing evolution over attachment, she sees emotional maturity. He doesn't hold on to her out of fear of losing her. He holds on to himself, trusting that whatever is real will remain. He remains committed to his goals, his purpose, and his personal development, even while loving her deeply. He doesn't shrink himself to keep the relationship comfortable. He grows so the relationship can grow with him. This kind of man inspires trust because he doesn't make her responsible for his identity. He doesn't rely on the relationship to feel whole. He doesn't need constant reassurance to feel secure. Instead, he invests in himself so he can offer something meaningful, steady, and strong. She trusts him because his love is not fueled by fear. His presence is not dependent on her validation. His commitment is not based on emotional dependency. He gives her confidence that the relationship can survive challenges, shifts, and seasons, because he will continue to evolve rather than remain stuck in old patterns. Evolution is attractive because it shows emotional intelligence. It shows a willingness to grow through discomfort rather than avoid it. It shows that he sees love as a journey, not a possession. And most importantly, it shows that he is building a life where she can join him, not a cage where she is expected to stay. She trusts a man like this because he brings stability without stagnation, passion without chaos, devotion without dependence. His growth makes her feel safe. His evolution makes her feel hopeful. His maturity makes her feel valued. She knows she can walk beside him because he's walking forward, not clinging to the past, not clinging to her, but building something bigger than both. His detachment makes her feel chosen, not suffocated, because he chooses with intention, not desperation. There is a profound difference between a man who wants her because he is afraid to lose her and a man who wants her because he sees her value with a clear, steady mind. Detachment is often misunderstood as disinterest, but in reality, it is the deepest form of confidence. A man who practices healthy detachment is not disconnected. He is composed. He doesn't grip her out of fear or insecurity. He doesn't cling to her to fill an emotional void. Instead, he chooses her from a place of fullness, clarity, and groundedness. When a man is desperate, his energy suffocates. His presence becomes heavy rather than supportive. His affection becomes a demand instead of a gift. She feels pressured, responsible, and overwhelmed. But when a man is intentional, his presence feels safe. He gives her room to breathe, room to think, room to be herself. His love does not hover over her. It stands beside her. She feels chosen because his attention is not scattered or impulsive. It is focused. It is deliberate. He doesn't choose her because he needs someone. He chooses her because he wants her. And that clarity is what makes her feel valued. He isn't trying to possess her. He isn't trying to control the relationship. He isn't trying to hold her hostage with constant reassurance. His detachment shows her that he isn't chasing love for survival. He's seeking it for growth. Detachment in this sense is the opposite of coldness. It is the refusal to let fear dictate behavior. It is the ability to feel deeply without drowning in emotion. It is the maturity to give space without withdrawing affection. And she can feel that balance in the way he shows up. He doesn't disappear, but he doesn't hover. He doesn't demand, but he doesn't disconnect. He simply allows the connection to breathe, and that is what strengthens it. A man like this makes her feel safe to open up because she knows he is not using her to soothe his inner wounds. She knows he is not attaching himself to her because he fears being alone. She knows he stands with her because he actually wants to, not because he spiritually collapses without her. His intention makes his love meaningful. His calm makes his presence comforting. His independence makes his efforts real. There is something deeply attractive about a man who doesn't crumble in her absence. His steadiness shows her that he's not in love with the idea of her. He's in love with the reality of her. He chooses the relationship not because he fears life without it, but because he sees a future with it. That difference creates emotional safety instead of emotional burden. She doesn't feel suffocated by him because he isn't trying to absorb her into his life. He's inviting her into it. He isn't trying to trap her in his world. He's creating a world where she would naturally want to stay. His detachment shows trust in her, trust in himself, and trust in the connection. And that trust makes her feel not only chosen, but cherished. The man who moves on teaches her that love is freedom, not fear, because his ability to let go shows her something most people never understand, that love should expand you, not imprison you. Too many relationships are built on fear of losing someone, fear of being replaced, fear of not being enough. That fear turns love into attachment, attachment into anxiety, and anxiety into control. But a man who moves on shows her a different truth. He shows her that real love cannot survive where fear lives, and fear cannot survive where freedom lives. When he moves on, he demonstrates that he isn't trying to trap anyone into staying. He isn't holding on to her out of panic or insecurity. He isn't gripping the connection so tightly that it suffocates both of them. Instead, he releases what no longer aligns with him. And in doing so, he shows her what healthy love looks like. Healthy love has room to breathe. It has room to grow. It has room to transform instead of stagnate. He teaches her that love is not a cage where two people lock themselves in. It's a space where two people choose each other freely every day. His ability to move on shows her that love should never be built on fear of abandonment. If someone stays only because they're scared to leave, that isn't loyalty. It's emotional imprisonment. A man who moves on refuses to participate in relationships built on dependency or desperation. He knows that love rooted in fear becomes toxic, manipulative, and draining. So instead, he models love rooted in personal freedom and emotional maturity. She watches how he handles endings, not with bitterness, not with blame, but with acceptance. He doesn't chase what's slipping away. He doesn't beg for what isn't choosing him. He doesn't force someone to love him. And that maturity teaches her something profound. The right person will stay without being held captive, and the wrong person will leave no matter how tightly you hold on. Love is freedom because it must be chosen, not controlled. What makes him powerful is not the fact that he walks away. It's the grace with which he does it. He leaves the door open for peace, not chaos. He releases the past without carrying resentment into the future. He continues his journey without dragging old wounds behind him. This kind of detachment isn't emotional numbness, it's emotional responsibility. It shows her that love can be honest without being painful, caring without being clingy, deep without being consuming. And in watching him, she begins to understand that freedom is not the enemy of love. It's the foundation of it. When love is free, it's real. When it's free, it's pure. When it's free, it lasts. The man who moves on teaches her that she is not meant to be owned, controlled, or depended upon for someone else's identity. She is meant to be appreciated, valued, and chosen willingly. Through his actions, he teaches her that love thrives when both people remain whole, that letting go is sometimes the highest form of respect, that choosing yourself is not selfish, it's necessary, and that the love meant for you will never require fear to keep it alive. She chooses him because his independence amplifies his value. He loves from fullness, not emptiness. A man who loves from fullness brings stability, clarity, and emotional richness into a relationship. He isn't trying to use love to fill a void within himself. He isn't trying to escape loneliness, silence his insecurities, or mask unresolved wounds by attaching himself to someone. Instead, he enters the relationship already whole, already grounded, already connected to his own identity. And that wholeness is what makes him irresistible. When a man is full within himself, everything he gives is genuine. His affection is not driven by fear. His attention is not motivated by insecurity. His commitment is not rooted in neediness. He doesn't love her because he's starving for validation. He loves her because he sees her clearly. His love is a choice, not a lifeline. And a woman can feel the difference instantly. A man who loves from emptiness drains a relationship. He requires constant reassurance. He becomes dependent on her emotional presence. He needs her to make him feel worthy, important, seen. Eventually, she becomes responsible for his emotional well-being instead of sharing a partnership with him. But the man who loves from fullness contributes to the relationship instead of extracting from it. He supports her, uplifts her, and walks beside her, not behind her, not on her, and not leaning on her to the point of collapse. His independence is not about distance, it's about strength. He has a life, a purpose, and a sense of self that exist outside the relationship. And because he doesn't lose himself in love, she feels safe to give herself to him. She never feels like she must sacrifice her identity to maintain the connection. She never feels pressured to overgive just to hold everything together. His independence creates emotional space, space for honesty, growth, and mutual respect. When she looks at him, she sees a man who can stand alone but chooses to stand with her. That choice makes his love meaningful. His stability becomes her comfort. His self-worth becomes an anchor for the relationship. His discipline makes her trust not only his love, but his leadership, his decisions, and his future. A man who loves from fullness doesn't crumble during conflict. He doesn't panic when things shift. He doesn't spiral the moment he feels distance. He approaches challenges with emotional maturity because he isn't operating from fear of abandonment. He operates from a secure inner world. And that security allows him to love her without trying to control her. She chooses him because his independence creates balance instead of imbalance. It gives her room to breathe instead of suffocating her. It invites her into his life instead of trapping her in it. His independence reminds her that he is with her because he wants her, not because he needs someone to fill an empty space inside himself. His fullness allows him to give freely, stay steady, and love deeply. And that is why she chooses him. because a man who is full within himself doesn't just love better. He loves stronger, clearer, and more intentionally than any man clinging from emptiness ever could. In the end, she chooses the man who moves with purpose, who stands in his own strength, and who loves without fear. Every part of him, his independence, his emotional maturity, his ability to let go, his depth, his clarity, shows her a version of love that is grounded, not chaotic. He doesn't cling to her, he chooses her. He doesn't need her to feel whole. He welcomes her into a life he has already built with intention. His presence calms her, his steadiness reassures her, and his self-respect inspires her. Through him, she learns that real love isn't born from desperation or obsession. It's born from two complete people choosing each other freely. He becomes the man she trusts, values, and ultimately chooses, not because he demands her, but because he elevates her. He shows her that the love meant for her will never suffocate her. It will free her.